Welcome, benvenido, hunying, benvenuto. The world is getting ready to be set on fire with the new podcast, Souls of Solidarity, coming to the Mystic 7 Record and Film YouTube channel August 22nd, 2020 at 8 p.m. We're a show where you, as an independent artist, musician, writer, filmmaker, or producer, can have a voice. Whether it be a book, new music, a film, or script you've written, we're there for you. We will cover major social issues, people in business with heartwarming stories. So join us, grab a drink, a joint, or whatever your fancy. Buckle up for the roller coaster ride of the century. Join us to the journey of the center of entertainment. New independent artists, upcoming filmmakers, new and exciting authors share their voices. Again, join us every Saturday after 8 p.m. for Souls of Solidarity. Welcome to another episode of Souls of Solidarity. Today we're going to talk about some movies that I wanted to review, that I had looked at and gave my critique on. But first, I want to talk about how sad I am about the loss of a great man. I want to send out my sympathy and prayers to Marvin Hagler and his wife Kay. We lost one of the great ones today, and I'm very saddened by this. I give you a little brief history of my encounter with Marvin Hagler, or Marvelous Marvin Hagler, as he liked to be called. I first went to see him when he fought, I think it was Roberto Duran. He fought Roberto Duran, and that was a 15-round thriller. I was there at ringside watching it up in Las Vegas. And then I had also seen him live when he fought Thomas Hitman Hearns. And that was at Donnybrook. It was a 3-round fight, but Hagler came out and put a finish to it right away. It was one of the greatest 3-round fights in the history of boxing. I mean, that was boxing's heyday back then in the 80s. And so I'm saddened to see the loss of Marvelous Marvin Hagler. He was such a warrior. I mean, he wore his heart on his shield, and he went down, with his shield. And so anyway, my friend, my champion, I want to say rest in peace. And I know where you've gone to a better place, and we're going to miss you. But at least we have the films to watch you. And what a great fighter you were. You have my sympathy, champ. As I said, for this show, we're going to review 3 movies that had a profound effect on America recently. So grab your favorite libations, a joint or whatever your fancy, and come along for our ride, to join us on our journey to the center of entertainment. Now, the first movie we're going to discuss is the much anticipated and the much awaited for Coming to America. Arriving 33 years after the first film came out in 1988, Coming to America sees the newly crowned king, Akeem, who is played by Eddie Murphy, leave behind the country of Zamunda again as he heads off on another adventure with his friend Simi, played and portrayed by Arsenio Hall. After discovering that he has a son named LaBelle living in the U.S., Akeem is sent out by his father King Jaffe, who played by the great James Earl Jones. They returned to Queens in New York once more, and most of the original cast was back, but they had some impressive supporting cast of newcomers, including Wesley Snipes, Leslie Jones, Kiki Lane, Tracy Morgan, Jermaine Fowler, Bella Murphy, Eddie Murphy's daughter, Rotimi, Namzuma, Mabuta, and Tiana Taylor. And I must say it was a very entertaining movie. A lot of things I liked about it. Some of the things, sequels to me are never as great as the original. So, as depicted in, John Landis's 1988 hit comedy, Zamunda was a country untouched by colonialism, where Black culture was celebrated as never before on screen. In particular, its multifaceted showcase of African fashion, music, and dance are exquisite in the movie, and throwaway jokes like the Slow Glow TV spot remain quotable to this day. So they brought some old school flavor to the new movie with Gladys Knight performing in it, En Vogue, Salt and Pepper, who all show up as themselves in fine vocal form. Now, Kiki Lane, who was a rising star in Beale Street Can Talk, plays Mika Akeem, Akeem's oldest daughter. The generational conflict may drive the story, but the vibe is of an all ages party, a blended family reunion with Tracy Morgan as the wacky uncle. So still, Lavelle and Marimba at the Big Bash, you might be tempted to wander off in the long, soft middle when the music and jokes are put on a hold in the interest of a creaky, corny, self-helpy plot. Now, once again, I did enjoy it, but it takes coming to America 3/4 of its running time to arrive at the place where Coming to America, the original, started. The rejection of an arranged marriage in favor of the search for a soulmate. Now, the feminist gestures at the end have an obligatory, let's all nod our heads in unison feeling that a more daring movie, or one with a stronger idea of what it wanted to be, would not have needed, But Lavelle's cynicism about sequels isn't challenged very effectively, I'm afraid. But it does come off as humorous. And, like I said, I enjoyed the movie. I didn't enjoy it as much as the first one, but still, I'm a big Eddie Murphy and Arsenio fan, so I like any of their movies. And of course, Wesley Snipes always puts his little funny side into it. So, but augmented by almost too many cameos to mention, up into including the closing credits. Fortunately, though, the film is peppered with some very funny lines, like Lavelle telling Halls Simi that he dresses like a slave from the future, which is kind of funny. And in very meaty fashion, bad-mouthing American movies by relying on sequels that nobody asked to see. Quote, yeah, that was kind of how the premise of this movie came about. It's frankly hard to tell how well the movie would have fared at the box office because Amazon Prime did pick it up. But it does make one miss a total theatrical experience, which I can't wait for the movies to come back, because one thing about the movies, you can make a night of it and you get the big screen, you get to sit back, you get to like wander off for those couple of hours or so into a different atmospheric sphere, as I call it. But if nothing else, it was fun to share in the reaction when someone like James Earl Jones appears on the screen. So, in that respect, is very nostalgia, and it's mildly entertaining. Movie possesses a rather timely undercurrent, and it was a movie that we needed so that we could laugh. And the costumes, Ruth Carter is amazing with the costumes that she does. But I really enjoyed the costume. I enjoyed the dancing. I thought the dancing was fantastic in the movie. And there were some lines that were funny, and had their subplots. But this was more about, and this one I think was more about woman empowerment. However, in the first one, I did enjoy the bathers. So anyway, I give it a see it. Don't miss it. It's worth seeing. You'll enjoy it. But let's move on to the next movie that I reviewed, and that would be One Night in Miami. Now, One Night in Miami is, a fictional account of the incredible night where icons Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, Sam Cooke, Jim Brown gathered to discuss their roles in the civil rights movement and the cultural upheaval of the 60s. Now, I think Regina King did an excellent job in directing this. I mean, she really captured it with the actors that she had, who were Kingsley Ben-Adir, Eli Gorey, Aldous Hodge, and Leslie Odom Jr. Now, Malcolm, during that time, he had his ups and downs with the Nation of Islam, and I think at this time he was about to get ready to leave the nation. So Malcolm's manner can be enlightening, but One Night in Miami is anything but. It was an intellectual thriller, cracking with the energy of ideas and emotions as they happen. It's an act of imagination. It does not reinvent the wheel, though. It polishes and clarifies the spokes, all while moving and entertaining us in the process. So, it was pretty fascinating. It was supposed to be a celebration, because it was a balmy night in Miami in February of 1964. Four friends, like I said, Malcolm X, Cassius Clay at the time, before he became Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown and Sam Cooke. They got together in this black-friendly hotel, renting a room up there, and by bypassing the nicer hotel where the whiter Fontainebleau was nearby. The occasion, it was the 22-year-old Clay's surprise title win over Sonny Liston, which was a shock to the world. Now, their vice, because Malcolm didn't drink, now I'm sure Jim Brown probably had a few drinks, and Muhammad Ali, he had his vices, but they celebrated with a tub of ice cream, which I thought was kind of a nice touch, but the troubled and weary Malcolm, reeling from the ongoing conflicts with the nation, was the party planner. Now, the lack of booze and women, neither of which are needed to stir up the joys and frictions that come to define, that night that they were talking. The boxer, again, who was Cassius Clay at the time, but soon to be known as Muhammad Ali, had finally decided to convert to Islam and is on the cusp of announcing as much to the public at large. Now, the beleaguered political figures who mentored him, meanwhile, feel that he is on his way out. Malcolm was, one way or another. So by this point, Malcolm has already called white men devils and been publicly reprimanded for his brash remarks when they had on the assassination of John Kennedy. But One Night in Miami is very intriguing and engaging on those terms, and it's a stirring and effective mashup of history, real and imagined, with facts carefully reoriented to add heft and imagination to what cannot be known. What's true is, though, that these men did get together at the Hampton Hotel in Miami to celebrate Clay's victory. The ice cream, too, like I said, was a real touch. So in fact, the fact is that Cook turned toward more overtly political art that was provoked that night through Malcolm X, because Malcolm X made him listen to Bob Dylan's Blowing in the Wind, and that gave Sam Cooke an epiphany about songs that he should write. So, Miami was set in almost exactly a year, give or take, before Malcolm would be gunned down in front of his family and supporters at the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem. And it was a year before Jim Brown would retire from his NFL career with the Cleveland Browns to become an actor. Cook, who was played by Leslie Odom Jr., was also in the midst of what the movie depicts as a transformation. The singer is moving away from the soulful, catchy, but unchallenging likes of songs to more of a lyrical protest for the times. A change is gonna come, which I love that song. And the album that I'm getting ready to produce for Phantom X, he's gonna redo that song and put it into as one of his songs. I mean, it's a deep song. It has a lot of meaning to it. I love that song, but it was released as a B-side, and only days after his death in 1964, which was sad. But anyway, Oscar winner Regina King, she makes history come alive with a powerhouse cast in her riveting feature film directorial debut, One Night in Miami. And Regina, if you're listening, I hope you give us more, because I really think you have a big future as a director. And the movies that you do are very powerful, and you're somebody to be looked up to and admired. So I hope we see more of her. Anyway, let's move on to our third film. Now, this third film was Billie Holiday versus the United States government. Now, I kind of had mixed feelings about the story, and that's only because my father was very good friends with Billie Holiday, and he used to tell me about some of the stories about her and some of the things that she went through. And he said he would be at a party and Billie would start singing and the party would just stop. I mean, just to listen to her. She was that incredible. And so I've done a lot of studying in history about Billie Holiday and some of the things that she went through. The movie, it's Hollywood, so Hollywood's going to put its touch and its spin to it. However, I did enjoy it. I think Lee Daniels did a great job on it, on the story that he told. Now, there were some things that were up and down and were not quite explained thoroughly, but as I said, it's a movie. You only have 2 hours in a movie to be able to discuss the story that you're trying to bring. And you got to make the story make sense, because you need the fans or the public to be captivated by it for those 2 hours. So you can't really tell everything within that 2 hour period, but you can say some things, you can bring them out, highlight some things. And that's what I think was done in this movie. It was a limited bioptic, it was based on a nonfiction book which follows the federal government's efforts in the 1940s and 1950s to prevent Holiday from singing her protest ballad, Strange Fruit. If you haven't heard it, you need to go listen to it. But, you know, the song's haunting lyrics describes the lynching of blacks in the South. You know, and the government didn't want Holiday to speak out against racism. And so the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, led by its undeterred commissioner, Harry Anslinger, goes after the singer for buying illegal drugs because they couldn't get her for singing the song. I mean, it's supposed to be freedom of speech. So you can sing whatever you choose to sing. So he went after her for illegal drugs because she used drugs, you know. But, you know, they would hound her, Billie, and, you know, as she endured, you know, jail time, you know, a drug setup. And then she was under the watchful eye of federal agent turned lover, Jimmy Fletcher, who was played by Trevante Rose in that movie, by the way, until her death, you know, from cirrhosis at the age of 44 in 1959. But the biopic, it awkwardly stitches from comedy to drama with little transition. Now, Lee Daniels, he stylized some scenes in black and white and speeds them up to replicate the look of the films of the time period, because back then we didn't really have color. But, you know, but the two most memorable sequences are a pair of long, extended, continuous takes that occurred during a drug-induced fever dreams that Billie had in the movie. One was she was a 10-year-old and she was showing Fletcher the trauma of being brought up in a bordello. In another, Holiday witnesses a lynching in a field, which leads into the actress who portrayed Billie Holiday, Andre Day, you know, her show-stopping performance of Strange Fruit. Now, the drama does get a little stifled from a jumbled narrative, but the film starts with Holiday being interviewed toward the end of her life. Then it jumps around different time periods, kind of the way Tarantino does movies. When you see his movies, he puts different stories at different spots, but then he brings it all together at the end. And so, you know, if you like that kind of movie watching, you know, this can be something, you know, worthwhile. Now, it can become confusing as the movie gradually abandons the interview framework. So the film tends to focus on the Strange Fruit controversy as the men in Holiday's life try to convince her to stop performing the song, but Billie at some time could be stubborn about it, and she, you know, wanted to make herself known as to what she was saying. You know, the film's runtime was 2 hours and 10 minutes, and so some people were critical because she didn't perform Strange Fruit until 1 hour and 30 minutes in. But I'm glad that they told some of the story of Billie's problems with the government. And you know, it was sad that the government has to spend all this time and taxpayers' money to shut one person up, you know, wasting their time and effort. And then what really pissed me off is later on, this Harry Anslinger gets a letter of commendation from President Kennedy, which, yeah, I was a little pissed about that. But it is what it is. I wasn't around then, so, you know. But anyway, Andre Day, who she comes from San Diego, she is riveting on the doomed but defiant star of the United States versus Billie Holiday. Now, that you need to know, you don't need to know a thing about Holiday to be awed by Andre Day's career-making performance in her debut film role. She shines so brightly as the legendary jazz and blues singer that she often transcends the wildly ambitious, um, but sometime uneven work by the director Lee Daniels. But I was really impressed with how she came with the performances and the talking of Billie, because like I said, my dad would tell me stories about Billie, and I went back and looked at some of her old films and performances, and Andra Day hit it out the park, because portraying Billie Holiday would be a daunting task for most seasoned actors, and that's what makes Day's dazzling neophyte big screen acting foray all the more impressive. She just completely owns it. Her role as both an actress and a musician. And all the singing is done by her, and she just hit it. She hit it out the park. She captures Holiday as a fascinatingly flawed person who was a victor on the stage and too often an embattled victim off it. Now, she was fierce. She had her ways and her thoughts and her stubbornness, but she was fragile. She was beset by demons from within and without because of the way she was raised. But Holiday was she was an uncompromising Black woman. She transferred her pain into timeless music, and that's what makes it so special. Day consistently captures that duality, despite sometimes disjointed execution and confusing back and forth chronologically. But Holiday, her life wasn't long. She was only 44 when she died. People say because of the drug and alcohol-related causes, and after being subjected to systematic racism and relentless persecution by the U.S. government's Federal Bureau of Narcotics, a precursor to the Drug Enforcement Administration. But the Bureau was alarmed, and then they were increasingly angered at her for her performance of The Strange Fruit. And let's face it, she was just singing a ballad about what was true in the American South. There were lynchings. Lynchings were big time back then. And so I feel, if Andre Day doesn't get an Academy Award for her performance and transition into Billie Holiday, then the voting must be fixed, because I believe she gave one hell of a performance, and I think she deserves that Academy Award. And I'm glad she won the Golden Globe, but I want to see her win the Academy Award, and I'm going to push for it. She did a wonderful performance, and I hope to see more of her in more movies. And I think this girl's career is just starting. Oh my God, she hits it out the park. So anyway, if any of you want to learn more about Billie Holiday, go Google her. She was born Eleanora Fagan was her birth name, but she was known professionally as Billie Holiday. And so, if you get a chance, Google her and read about her story, because it's pretty fascinating. And so, I want to give a shout out to her. Like I said, my dad knew her. He talked a lot about her, and he was very fascinated by her. So there you have it. If you have any more thoughts about that movie and stuff, you know where to reach me. Okay, so if you have any thoughts about what we shared today, any questions or subjects that we covered, you can reach us at Twitter, Mystic 7 Records at Twitter, or follow us on Instagram. Additionally, you can go to our website, can check out our merchandise. And then hit the subscribe button and become part of our family. And once again, join us every week. We usually post up about after Saturdays, after 8 p.m. or thereabout, where we'll take you on our journey to the center of entertainment, dealing with music, film, literature, and social issues. We're going to be reviewing more movies at the beginning of each month. And then again, our top 5 music will be brought to you on a weekly basis. So we'll be reviewing that. And then again, we'll be doing books with independent writers. So once again, I leave you with these 3 words: love, prosperity, solidarity. I'm out of here. Love you.